Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be drafting a corset with yoke pattern, and these are the measurements needed. So with me here I have my pattern paper and my paper. I'm going to mark this point as my shoulder point. Then from your shoulder point you measure to your bust point. Then from your shoulder point still measure to your under bust point. Still from your shoulder point measure to your waist point. Now I'm going to be taking 1 inch, and this will be for my seam allowance. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my ruler to connect, to rule a straight line on those points that I marked out. Now I'm just going to label this my bust line, under bust line, my waist line, and seam allowance line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my shoulder measurement, which is divided by 2. I'll mark it there. Then I will take 3 inches for the wideness of the neck, then 3 inches for the depth of the neck. I'm just going to use my ruler to connect to both points. Now the next thing I'll be doing is I'll be coming down by 1 inch, and this will be for my shoulder slope. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect from that my shoulder slope, meeting my neck part, and then I'm going to mark from that my shoulder slope. I'll mark out my armhole measurement, which is 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. I'll take it there, and then I will connect to that point, just like this. So now I'm going to mark my bust measurement, which I divided by 4. I'll just mark it here, and then I'll come back to my armhole. I'll divide what I have there by 2, which is 4¼ inch. I'll take it there, and then I will come in by ½ inch. To connect it this way, and this is for the front armhole. Now I'm going to come up by 1 inch from my chest line, and this is because I don't want my cleavage to show that much. So now from my chest line at my center front, I'm going to be taking ½ inch inward. This is my chest line. I'll be taking ½ inch inward down to my waistline. I'll just connect with a straight row, mixing those points I marked. Now the next thing I'll do is to take my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches divided by 2 give me 4. I'm going to be marking the 4 inches on every point I have on my pattern paper, every line. Now I'm going to use my ruler to connect to those points straight this way. So now the next thing I'll do, I'll take 1 inch from my side front, and I'll take 1 inch from my center front. I'll be doing the same thing for my under bust point. Then I'll connect to those points I marked out. So now from my bust line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. I'll connect just like this. So now from the chest line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. And then from this 1 inch I mark upwards from my chest line, I'm going to take 1 inch from the center front, 1 inch from the side front. So now I'll connect both points, meeting that point I marked under my chest line. Now I'm done connecting both points. From my side front, I'll mark in 1/4 inch, and this is just to tighten up the upper part of the corset. Now I'll just connect it meeting my chest line, just like this. So now from this point, I'm just going to connect them just like this. I'll be connecting this with my curve row, meeting my armhole line. Then I'll just connect it like this. And this is for the side front. Then for this part, I'll be making use of my free hand. And this is just to let you know that you can also make use of your free hand if you don't have your French curve. Then I'll connect it this way. So now this is the yoke part. Now I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches that I divided by 4. I'm going to be marking that 4 for my side front. I'll place my tape on my bust line. I'll just mark the 4 there. And then I'll connect this way, meeting my under bust line. And this is just to make the bust to sit properly inside the cup. I'll just use my free hand to connect from my under bust line this way, meeting my bust line, just like this. You can make use of a free hand, you can make use of your curve rule. Now this particular part, I'm going to be cutting it out. I'm going to be cutting this part and marking with red marker. Now I'm going to be taking my bust measurement, which I divided by 4. I'll be replacing that intake I took, which is 2¼ inches. I'm going to be replacing it. And then I'm going to be doing the same thing for my under bust line. I'll take my under bust measurement, then I'll replace the 2 inches, that intake. I'll do this for my waist line. Now I'm going to connect to each point with my ruler. I'm just going to extend this to my seam allowance line. So now I'll be making use of 2 inches for my allowance. I'm going to mark it at each line, and then I'll connect to each point I marked my 2 inches allowance. Now I'm done with the front part. I'm just going to indicate this part as my allowance. And this is all for the front, guys. So now this particular part will be the yoke. So I'm going to be cutting the yoke out first before I'll cut the corset. So now I'm done cutting out the yoke. I'll be cutting the corset part. I'm done cutting the corset part. So this is my corset with yoke. I'm just going to label this my center front and my side front. This will enable me to know the part to join the corset cup when sewing. This is it for the front pattern. I'll go ahead and draft the back. So here I have my pattern paper. I already rule a line just like I did on the front pattern. So this is my shoulder line. I'll mark to my bust point. Then this under bust point is not really necessary. Then I mark to my waistline. Then lastly, the seam allowance. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be taking 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. So I'll just take it inwards on every line. Then I'll rule straight between those 1.5 inch points I marked out, just like this. So this will serve as my zipper allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take my shoulder measurement from that zipper allowance line I marked, which is 8 inches. So I'm just going to mark it there, the 8 inches. Then I will make use of 3 inches for the neck wideness. Then I'll make use of 2 inches for the depth. That is the deepness of the neck. I'm just going to connect with my ruler to those points I marked out. So the next thing I will do is to come down by 1 inch from that my shoulder part by 1 inch, and this will be for my shoulder slope. And then I'll connect this way. After doing that, I'm going to mark out my armhole measurement. I'll connect to that point from my shoulder slope. And then I will rule a straight line like this from that 8.5 inch I marked for my armhole measurement. So this will be for my chest line. Now I'm going to be taking my nipple to nipple measurement from my bust line, which is 8 inches divided by 2, which is 4 inches. I'm going to be taking all my measurement from that 1.5 inch line I took for the zipper allowance. Now I'm going to connect those 4 inches I took for my nipple to nipple measurement. I'm going to rule a straight line just as you see me doing. I'm just using my blue marker to make this more visible. Now from my chest line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. I'll mark it there. And then I'll connect my dart to that point I marked. Then I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch for my center back, 1/2 inch for my side back from the waistline or seam allowance line. Now I'm going to connect this meeting my bust line. And this is for my darts at the back. So now I'm going to take my bust measurement, which I divided by 4. I'm going to mark it there. And then I will divide what I have on my armhole, which is 8.5. I will divide by 2, 4.25 inch. Then I will not be coming in at the midpoint at the back. I will just connect it this way, meeting my bust measurement at my chest line, just like this. So this is for the back armhole. There is no 1/2 inch intake at the back armhole. So now I have my bust measurement here. Then I will come to my under bust line. I'll mark out my under bust measurement. Then I will be replacing if you notice, I took the measurement from that my zipper allowance line. Then I'm going to be replacing my dart intake, which is half inch, and then I'll be doing the same thing for my waistline. I'll replace the dart intake of 1 inch there. I'll do the same thing for my seam allowance line. I'll replace the 1 inch dart intake. So now I'm going to connect to the points I have for my body measurement, just like this. Now I'm going to be adding 2 inches for my allowance. I'll just label this as my allowance, my 2 inches allowance. So now from my seam allowance line at the zipper part, I'm going to come in by half inch, and I will connect that half inch I took inward in a slant method, meeting my chest line like this. And this is to avoid any bulge at the zipper part. So I'll just indicate this with my red marker. I'm going to be cutting this part off. I basically do this for all my videos when I'm drafting my back patterns. So now for the yoke part, I'm going to be coming up from my chest line by 3. You can actually come up by 4, you can come up by 2. You can decide to just like cut it straight from the chest line. So from my chest line for my zipper part, from my center back line, I came up by half inch. You can actually come down by to your chest line, you can come down to your bust line. It depends on how deep you want it to be. I don't want mine to be too deep, so I'm just connecting it this way. So now I just connected it to the zipper part, and this is for my back yoke. And this is all for the back pattern. I'm going to go ahead and trim out the yoke first. If you want to make this to be without no yoke, you can actually cut it from the chest line. I'll just go ahead and cut this out by cutting out the yoke part first. So this is all for my front and back yoke with corset pattern. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, share and like. Thank you.